Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus3 Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording here Saturday morning, July 11th. My name is Ben Maldonado. As always, I'm here with my partner, Barry Hederachi. Barry, how we doing?
Doing great, doing great.
That's excellent. First, we want to thank everybody, all the subscribers and followers who, for the likes, the hypes, the subscriptions, and the comments. It really makes a difference with YouTube when you do that. So if you continue to do that, we would appreciate it. On last week's show, we had some great calls. We talked about ES holding 74.50. It did and rallied. We talked about bonds trading lower into support. That happened. They're at a critical spot. We talked about crude bouncing off of 65, 66 support. We saw that. We talked about gold being able to push higher, which it did. And lastly, we talked about the ags and the softs moving higher and sort of having bullish setups. And we saw wheat, corn, soybeans, cocoa, and coffee all move sharply higher. So all in all, good show. The theme, Barry, for this week, we talked a little bit about it and we came up with one. We're at the edge of glory or a trap door. And this is part of, what we've been talking about with this coiling up. And, I think nothing says it better than the S&P. So let's go to the charts and let's have a look.
Well, Ben, last week the big deal was his triangle. Remember that?
Oh,
And
absolutely. And that gives me because I didn't give you a limerick. I got a limerick for you.
well, all right. Is it about triangles?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
The triangle tightened all week while bulls and bears played hide and seek. If support holds firm, we may finally turn. If not, it's the trapdoor we reap.
Wow. That's about it. I think my work is done. I mean, that's pretty much the
Do you think
deal,
that
right?
kind of summarizes the week?
I'm telling you, we should do each section just with a limerick and and,
Just
and it'll be
summarize it
done.
with a limerick.
It'll be the limerick show. But seriously, that trap door, you're not kidding. So 74.50, we dipped down there and reversed really quickly. So that kind of held, right? I mean, we talked about it
Hmm.
last week. That's kind of, if you look at it last week, we were right there. And this week made a little bit of a false break, whipped around and moved higher. So, all right, what are we doing here?
I
What's
mean, what do
happening?
you think we need to see to say, okay, this is a legitimate break, we're going? Because as you've discussed a lot, these triangles will do false breaks and then go the other way too.
Absolutely. And the triangles, I mean, it's good to watch them to see what happens. Or it's also good to watch not just to see what the triangle does, but what the structure does. It could just
Hmm.
end up folding right into some kind of a consolidation or a false break and so on. And the easiest way to figure that out is to watch the levels. And I've been talking about ever since the high came in, we've been talking about what it means to have a cycle high in place. People look for a correction or consolidation. Sometimes they go deep, sometimes they go sideways. In this case, obviously we triangulated and now we're looks like we're starting to go sideways. So what are the clues? Well, the main rule is still the main rule, right? As long as the high is in place, there's not a whole lot to do other than to respect that. And for the upside to work out, I would absolutely need for that high to be taken out and to be settled on top. And the
Hmm.
settling on top could come in two forms. I mean, we could settle on top, obviously above 76.25 would be the obvious place, but if we can break out, show some strength up there for 1 or 2 days and come back and settle above 75.82, that's still acceptable.
Hmm.
And you can see, the 75.82 has been pretty good, right? I mean, on that first lower high, we came right up to it and tapped it and went down to the 74.04, that bracket. And now we're back right at that spot. So, we have a couple of choices. We can try to do a false break or which we kind actually we did break a little higher. So we could either reverse here come Monday,
Hmm.
or obviously the second choice is to break higher and see if we can take out the old June highs. And if we do that, we need to follow through because that's obviously a prime spot for false breaks. So, I mean, look, you don't get a lot of chances to play with the all-time high. So we're here and we have to deal with it properly and not blindly because, we trade short term and especially the indices. So we have to get a good handle on how we frame that thing. So for upside, like I said, we need to be above 76.25, settle above that, or 75.82 if we already did some, if we already spent 1 or 2 days up there, we do a pullback before a move. We need to hold above 75.82. That's the key. We need to hold one or the other, ideally 76.25. If we can do that, it means the market is very strong, and then we can look for it to, move higher and probably finish up the square, which is around 78.18, 78. Yeah, let's say 78.18 for now. Easy to remember. So that's the upside possibility if we continue to push higher. So we have a couple of flags, right? Tripwires, 75.82 is the first one, and obviously the old high, it's the second one. To the downside, this is some kind of look, when you have three highs lined up pretty tightly meshed together, all kinds of nonsense can happen. Well, kind of like if you guys remember, starting last December going into February, right? We had pretty much 3 months of just jerking the chain, all through here. A little bit higher, a little bit lower, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, and eventually till we sort of rolled over. So we're not, and we managed that pretty well. That entire phase came in perfectly. So here, let's try to do the same. And in order to do that, the highs, as far as I'm concerned, like I said earlier, high is still in place until it's taken out. And we talked about that entire scenario. To the downside, well, anything outside of settling above 75.82 at a minimum is still, we're still in the consolidation phase. And in that phase, downdrafts are possible. Obviously, if we get below 74.50, we take out 74.50, we get stuck below that for some reason next week, that'll just sort of nail in the next down leg, I would say, because we haven't really had a good push down. So if we somehow settle below that, I think we're susceptible. We have CPI coming out next week, so that could be coming in hot, and a lot of reasons for this to for that trap door. So watch out for that. I think that's definitely in the cards, more so than ever. So watch for that, especially now where we're close to the highs. A lot of things can happen. So anyway. So that's my take. It's fairly simple. We have two levels to watch, 75.82 to the upside, and then we have 74.50 again to the downside. But because of the place where we are now, we're pretty close to the old highs. I would watch the Friday low. If you get a reversal off of Friday's bar, that's sort of the first shot across the bow. So you want to keep an eye on that for sure. So that's my take. Triangle, well, I think triangles start. I mean, obviously I could draw another line here, but I think the sort of the strong compression that we saw is fading. So we're moving into something else. It doesn't mean I didn't see the Gartley here. We have X, A, B, C, and a D target up here. And obviously we have a B, C, D that could finish up in grand style, here. I don't have to put the entire Gartley, but just look at the last leg. And, take a look at this. How interesting, right? Look where it ends up, Ben.
Double top false break.
and an ABCD completion. So,
Right.
everything wrapped up in one.
Right.
So this is what I mean, it could get very complicated, but if you watch the levels, I think it'll help figure out what's happening very easily. But I think this, I'll leave the ABCD up here. I mean, this just is crying out for a false break at the high here, right? We can do a false break and then be done with it. And this other rule of false breaks is if an ABCD I mean, other rule of ABCDs would be if the ABCD, the equal move is taken out, obviously there's a lot more to go, then people have the 618s and everything else loaded up above. So we have other targets. So it could actually push higher all the way up into, well, 7750 probably got a bunch of probably some kind of a gamma wall, normally all the 50s and even numbers, right? But
Hmm.
7818 looks like our square. If we push, sure. The trap door, yes, that's in place too. So this is what I think. Didn't you say edge of glory or something at the open? So I
Yeah, it's
think
either the edge of glory or right
so I would
or
say this is
trapdoor.
the edge of edge, this is the edge we're talking about. So
Hmm.
if we can somehow jump that line, okay, fine. Maybe we can milk a little bit more upside, but otherwise, I think with the CPI coming in, I'd say the trapdoor scenario is definitely in place. So watch out for
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
All right, yeah, that's enough for the cash. Let's take a look at the front month. Same deal, right? We have the triangle and we started pushing higher. Is there's a false break? Well, we'll see. You guys saw where that ABCD ends up, right about at the old highs. So yeah, we have, we're kind of open towards 76.66. I remember last time this 666 came up, we had a pretty good high or a low. I can't remember
Hmm.
what it was. It was pretty good. So let's see if we can push up that high. Otherwise, if we fail this, you want to watch this 75, 75. If we get below that, that's the important level. I know it doesn't look like it so far, but it will be. So
Hmm.
watch that on the futures market. And especially we get pushed below that, we get trapped below that, and we take out Friday's low. Then, obviously we have a lot of downside to work with. And if that happens, we have the 74.84, 74.81 level. Guess I should just give one, let's say 74.84 level. And if we get below that, then we have a lot more, we have a lot of open space to run. And yeah, so we'd use for the futures market, ES futures, front month, we use 75.75 as the pivot. I think if we're above that, we can certainly push a little higher, check out that 76.66 level. And if we get under 75.75, we're definitely looking for weakness at this point. So that would be the pivot for next week. Here's this is a long-term square. I think it's coming off of, well, not that long-term, but COVID lows. And here we're pushing up against the 76.19 level. This is the continuation chart, the ES. 76.19, 76.20. Well, you guys can see what's happening here, right? We have the high, then we have the contract change, but looked like a false break, but it really wasn't. But anyway, now we're pushing right up against that. So here again, we're seeing a similar that edge that you were talking about. Edge of glory is
Hmm.
really the 76 19, 76.20 level. If we can get above that and hold above, I think that opens up. I mean, look, as far as this is concerned, we're going to open up an entire new square, 50, half a square if we break out of that. So that edge you talked about is actually, it's real.
Hmm.
This is not happening in the midair somewhere in between these things, but this is a half square coming off of a very strong low, and you can see how the January highs we held it perfectly, right? Timed out. I think this is how we called out the exact high through all
Hmm.
that madness, right? We thought it might be this one. I remember that.
Yep.
And then we came back and remember you were talking about, hey, what if we hit the square, And we did,
There's the timing. Yeah.
right? Timing was there and we swoosh. So let's see. I mean, this sort of ascending triangle, it's just begging to be broken to the outside. But, when it's begging and everybody can see it, I'm always suspicious. So let's see. I think the same rules. It seems like, each chart had its own line. So here it's, 76.20. I'll just change that so we have a nice even number to work with.
The other thing to notice too, Barry, is if we get above and clear that half square, there's room to run.
Well, absolutely.
I mean, the quarter square looks like it's around 7,800, and then the full square is up over 8,000.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And the next timing, significant timing, is not till looks like mid-August, late August, right?
Yeah, for that, yes, that would be, yeah. If
Hmm.
it comes in, let's see how that works. Not to say that couldn't be a low,
That's
but
true. Very true.
right. But I'm
Yeah.
still not convinced. I need some proof. I need price to actually prove, show some signs. So we want it to be above 76.20, although the close was right there on the
Hmm.
line.
Yeah. Like it always does, the weekend thrillers.
Oh, I swear. So, but the interesting thing is, the 74.80 level, the lows last week, we basically did an eighth move here. So
Yep.
everything's working out pretty well. So if we're going to do this, we really have to do it in grand scale. We really have to get on top and go grand scale both ways. If we take out, if we can't make this get on top, or if we make a false break, and if we reverse Friday's bar, I think then we're going to open up some downside. So
Hmm.
you guys keep an eye on that. I think that's all I have to say for the ES. Let's take a quick look at the Nasdaq, which you're also going to cover, but with the weekly and monthlies, I think.
Hmm.
So on this chart, not a whole lot happened from last week. We kind of stayed in the same area. We dipped a little lower, and you can see, we were able to recover the next day pretty strong. But my number up here is 30,200. We didn't quite get to test that. Perhaps we go up and test it and see what happens. But Nasdaq would have a lot to catch up. This tells me, we got to be a little bit cautious because Nasdaq was leading the way, and now all of a sudden, what the S&P is going to go to new highs, right?
Hmm.
So we'll see, because Nasdaq is going to take quite a bit, right, to get to the big square at 31,000. We got a little bit of
Yeah.
work to do. It would have to be really good news. But I'll tell you which triangle didn't break is the one in Nasdaq. So we're
Hmm.
still working that. And 29,461 is the level you want to watch. That's sort of the pivot in the bigger picture. In zoomed in a little bit, I would say Friday's low is the key. You want to make sure, if we get below that, then 29,461 is going to be the level that's going to be tested. So below that, we're going to be weaker. To the upside, 30,200 is the resistance level we're going to be working with. And well, moving on to the Dow futures, we tapped that 3/8 and corrected pretty nicely, right? Big down day and then a little bit of inside. And now the Dow has a little bit to catch up on. If we're gonna, if we were gonna go to glory, we could have just kept going last
Hmm.
week right into 54,100. And I don't know if this is any indication of the CPI coming out next week, but keep an eye on again, Friday's low, Thursday we had an inside bar. Friday we tried to push a little higher. I would say watch Friday's high and low for the Dow futures because we're still inside that big down bar. We have that shadow we're trying to work through. And if we can settle above Friday's high, well, we're in pretty good shape. Maybe you go up and test the highs. But if we take out Friday's low, then we got some trouble. If the Dow takes out Friday's low, then other ones are not going to be too far behind. So that's the story there. That's it for the indices. Let me just jump to the weeklies and take a look at the weekly charts. Here's a weekly cash. For the last few weeks, except for one, we're basically straddling this 74.80 level,
Hmm.
right? And that's sort of indecision in a way, and in another way, it's not showing a lot of strength. I can tell you that. Because if it is, we would be above that, obviously, right? And because in a full-blown bull market, we get above and stay above, and that's just kind of how it works. So here we've been straddling, so it almost seems like there's a bracket, quarter, eighth of a square above and below the 74.80. All right, so cash, we talked about enough on the daily setup. So here, obviously, we need to settle above 74.80, which we haven't done. When I say settle above, I mean the entire bar, right? We want to make air above that, which we haven't done. And well, up until it does that, we'll have to kind of work with the dailies and see what happens here. Yeah. So weekly is kind of on watch to see if we can go challenge the old highs and perhaps take them out or not. Here's the continuation chart. Weekly, 76 26 was a level that we were working with. Yeah, we were working earlier back in June, roughly, right? Roughly. Now we're back right at the, pretty close to it. We could easily reach up and touch this 77, 30, 33 level up here. So if we manage to, reach through the 77.33, ends up becoming a very important level for the futures market. So let's watch that. But if we fail in here, 76.26 around here, we're back to testing 73.68. Pretty wide bracket, but it's a weekly, and you can see we've been in tight formation here where at the upper end, not a whole lot to do. We're not exactly trending in here, so we just leave it at that. We're watching it. A little bit of a side eye. And all right. Russell also sort of gave it up as if it knew what's coming around the corner. That's kind of how I feel. Here we were straddling for a couple of weeks, and you can see, we couldn't exactly hold above 30.41, and I'm reading that as a sign. So for next week, obviously, if we can settle above 30.41, great. Maybe there's another entire square we can travel, or even settling above. Well, you can just remember, if you can settle above Friday's high, right? Then we can open up the upside. Otherwise, I think it's looking a little weaker. That's my take.
Tried for 3, 4 weeks and just couldn't get above that.
Yeah. Really kind of was optimistic, but square is a square, right? Bam, we hit it, and that's it. Now we're stalled. We didn't hold above much. We were straddling, and now we're kind of slipping below. So this is always a little suspicious. So yeah, I'm treating with a little bit of caution and almost like sign of things to come, maybe. So we'll see. And the weekly, all right, let's take a quick look at the 30-minute.
The daily field map.
The daily field map is right.
Keeps us out of trouble.
Yes, definitely. All right, so just to quickly get through it, you're starting on the 6th. So we were looking at the 75.62 was a level to watch. And, we tried to push above, and the levels really held up well after the low came in, right? Here, we had this structural resistance up here at 75.80, 75.90. We kind of pushed up against that, couldn't really do it. And we pushed below 75.62 on the 7th, right? After that, you can see here, we kind of basically stalled and dropped, and we dropped right into the 74.72 level, which was a big support level we were watching, which also was a false break against the low on the 2nd. And after this low was a higher low, well, we would expect something to move higher. And from here, it was easy because, we're stair-step basically perfectly. 75.22, got above, stayed above. 75.62, got above and stayed above, except for this little move on Friday, which always something, right? So
It was
anyway,
wild.
yeah, well, that flush came in, got everybody, with the stops over here, and whatever flush it was, basically came right down into 75.62 again, and immediately reversed. And we pushed, it was a basically grind for the rest of the day higher, right up into this 76.23, which is our resistance, minor resistance. But from here on, it's going to be, this resistance going into the main level, which is 76.56. So can we do that? We'll see. But we can run up to complete the square at 76.56. And for next week, if we can't get above that, that's a big tell. So if we can't settle above 76.56, I would be very suspicious, especially until the CPI comes in. So I would watch that. In the meantime, 76.23 is a level to watch since we closed, within a couple of points of that. If we're below that, then we have 75.62 to watch. And that's really the big bracket, right? If we get under that and we come back, the counter trends can't really settle above that, then we got some weakness coming in, and it's probably going to be down. On the other hand, if that holds and we can hold up in here and we can move above 76.56, okay, fine. Maybe we check out 7,700. But that's kind of, we have to really lay down the lines here to watch map out the market for next week. So Well, we do it every week, but next week
Hmm.
especially. Anyway, that's what I have for the indices. Got anything to add to this, Ben?
Just listen, if you're not looking at this chart every morning for these levels, you are doing yourself a great disservice. They are killer levels for short-term trading.
Yeah, it's been working out pretty well.
Hmm.
And also watch the fuse lines. They give you always tip you off early on which way the market's going to break after the open. So that the two charts together, well, it helps us. Maybe it'll help you. Not everybody's style. All
Right.
right, let me put it back to you to do the Nasdaq then, real quick. Ready?
Yeah, let's do the Nasdaq.
Ready? Go for it. Well, Ben, you're not kidding when you said about the edge. I mean,
Yep.
everything's at a line, everything's at a 50% line or some critical level.
And I've been talking about this level for weeks and weeks now, this 3048, 30,048. And we closed at 30,068. And that is the key, right? You can see we've been crisscrossing it and we've been stuck under it for now, a little over a week, where we
Right.
back tested here, then we went lower and now we're coming up and testing again. If we punch through, we could break out to the upside and if we sit on top of this, the triangle will be broken to the upside and we'll be moving higher. So from a daily basis, that's your level. Watch that level, and you'll see how it ties in with some other stuff too. But that is really where we're summarizing this very succinctly. 30,048. Watch that early next week and in Globex and see what we do. Pushing above that, it opens up obviously all these different levels and potentially taking out the high. But this is the key. Let's go to the calendar day because this is a calendar day from the October 2022 lows. We had talked about this chart before, and look where we closed here. It's a
Wow.
three quarter line, and it's 1 point off. And remember, this is from a totally different start point, totally different chart. Again, telling us that this number is pretty critical.
It's been getting pushed back for 3 weeks, so let's see what happens this week.
Yep. And the interesting thing too, Barry, is we talked about this 45 holding on the way down. The first bar, it's practically going to be at 30,048, 30,100, right? So it's all right in here.
Yeah, that's the one I meant. Like you can see 4 weeks in a row, we go tap
Hmm.
that and we drop, tap it,
Yep.
drop, right?
Yep.
Before. Yeah.
Yep. And then we got the 45, the down sloping 45 as well that's coming into play. So if we push
Mhm.
through that, it should have some juice to run to, 30,800, 30,700, which is near the all-time highs. So we know the level to watch and focus on that level. Here's a weekly. Now, weekly we closed right at the high, which is usually a bullish sign, whether it's in commodities or or the futures here. The key next week is can we print a full bar over this 29,779 level? If we can do that, then we will finally have cleared this level after crisscrossing it for several months. So that it's a big week coming up. And again, it is the edge, right? We're at that edge where we got to go one way or we got to go the other way, and the choice that it makes will have you know serious implications for what's coming next.
I mean, the nice thing with how the levels kind of panned out this week, it's not going to be that tricky. It's very easy to see
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
the edge, right? We're at the
Because
edge.
we stopped at the edge for the week, and now it's got to make a choice. It can't stay on that knife's edge all week. It's too narrow. It's too
No,
too
no, we're going
thin.
to make or break. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna move. Let's lastly look at the monthly. Monthly, same story. Obviously, with this bar, we're going to crisscross. The soonest we could stay above or get stuck below would be August. But again, it's that we know the range, that price, here, 29.6 on the daily, it's 30,000. On the weekly, it's 29.8. It's all right in there, and we're there. So this is decision week coming up, I believe. So we'll see.
Mhm.
Anything you want to add on the bigger picture stuff here, the weekly, monthly, or the calendar day?
No, I think we covered everything pretty well. So you guys should be ready.
Yeah,
Everybody should be
and
ready.
just focus right here.
Yeah.
Focus on that 30,000 level. See how we trade around it. If we can get above, and then on any pullback, stay above that during the week, then that will be bullish. If we push up and go back down again, we're in the same spot.
Yep.
More chop.
All right.
Let's see. Let me throw it back to you, and we can
Um,
finish up your segment.
all right. Let's move on to bonds.
Interesting spot too. Another edge.
Another edge right on support.
Yeah.
If you guys are following us, we caught the ABCD high. We've been bearish bonds as far as I can remember now. It's almost a habit. But anyway, 110, 22, 23, we were looking for support. Of course, last 3 days we came and sat right on top. Speaking of trap doors, this is a trap door of sorts
Hmm.
also. If you look at how long we've managed to kind of hold above this, we'll dip down into this and kind of recover, not a big recovery because it really can't get above this 115 either, right? But the fact that it's been kind of bumping along, but this is sort of you know, the
I
bottom
mean,
we can.
go back even further. Look at 25. We tested that multiple times.
Well, yes. I mean, here was the first shot, right?
Yep.
25 here, then little false break here. That got us going and tried to stay above, a couple of months, slipped through. This to me was sort of that the false break before the big drop, and exactly
Hmm.
what happened, right? We had a nice down move. Here's an ABCD correction and down. So I think, look, if let's say Thursday's low goes, we're gonna go. So it's
Hmm.
110.23 is the 50% level for bond. It's definitely a pivot at this point. If we get below, not just are we going to check the lows around 109 and a half or so, but that opens up entire another square. How fast we cover it, I'm not sure, but we're definitely going lower, a lot lower if we get stuck below this 110.23 level. So that's
Hmm.
the only thing you guys need to know about bonds. Strength wise, what happens if we hold this? Sure, we can probably consolidate it a little bit more. We're not really looking at the long side, like, oh, it's support, let's buy the support. We're not quite at that level. So that's that. Yeah, we're not looking at the buy side for now. All right, moving on to the weekly charts, weekly bonds. We had 114 was the resistance. Obviously, we ran up there and reversed, and we have 106, let's say 107 is the next big support level, which will bring us down to the lows in 23. So it looks like that's where we're going, kicking and crying, but looks like that's where we're going. So for now,
Hmm.
let's see if we can get to at least the 110 levels. Yeah, that's the weekly. Not a whole lot to add, when things are on the move. All right, let's move on to crude.
Looks like the potential start of a reversal here.
It could be. I'll tell you what, though, from the reject, price getting rejected at 97, coming all the way back, full square down, back down to 66, 65, which is exactly what we expected. And last week, we talked about, well, this is not the place to be selling anything. If anything, we're going to look for a bounce to go up and test the 50% level, which would be, 81, 79, 50, 81 up in this level. Well, it looks like we're off to a start. What are we watching for next? We want to see if there's a higher low and a reversal off of that higher low. Once we get that, I think we can probably move towards 79, 50, 81 area, which is the old, that was our old big pivot, right? And you can keep an eye on 73.50 to see which way the wave is pushing, right? If we get above
Hmm.
73.50, it's highly likely we can get to 70, 81 very quickly. If we're below that, well, it's probably still idling and consolidating. And long as it's below the low we had, let's say above 66, it's doing okay. And let's not forget, that this correction out of this breakout was this so far, if that's actually what that was, it's pretty textbook. And to confirm it, it'll take a little bit longer. I mean, really to confirm it textbook wise, we would have to take this high out, which is the high we had last week. And that high would be 76. If we can take out 76, well, that confirms that being in place. For now, I think it's in place just from the structure, and we'll work it that way. So that's crude. Anything you want to add on crude there, Ben?
No, just that what you said. Let's look and see if we get a higher low on this
Yeah,
pullback.
right, right.
That'd be a big clue if we get that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to get on that. So moving on to the weekly, we have 78, 81. That's the key level we got to get above. Below that, I would consider that consolidating, and that's sort of the ceiling we have to work with. And normally, breaks through here. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. And the low looks good. So on the weekly, I don't really have a whole lot to add other than we had a low come in and we had a big reversal off of it. So far, the weekly is looking pretty good. Like the low is good, right? So I'm just going to go with that. And then next proof we really need for the market to continue higher would be to settle above the 78 level. And once we do that, then we have 97 and onwards. Let's see if we go two squares, we'll be up to $150. So
Mhm.
never know.
I'll tell you what, if you ever wanted to have a perfect example of you'll go broke trading news, just try doing it with crude. I mean, Friday, the news was, okay, the Hormuz is going to be closed, and US says if they don't open it up 100% in 24 hours, we're going to bomb them back to the Stone Age. And crude was down,
Right.
you know?
Well, you can
And
only cry wolf so many times, right? You gotta.
right, yeah. I mean,
Anyway,
it's just don't look at the news, look at the chart, look at the price
no,
levels.
no. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, you can't look at the news at all.
No.
But I'll tell you, whatever the deal is, the chart will tell you. So there are no worries. Like, daily covered, give pretty good coverage. I mean, weekly, we're only one bar into it after the low. So let's watch it. Like I said, 78, 81 is the level that we have to
Mhm.
jump. We'll just work that out as it goes. Let's move on to gold. I'm gonna do all the metals in one shot. Then we'll do the weeklies. So gold, it looked like it was getting a low, in June because it was pretty close to some timing. We had 135 degrees from the high and all of this line up. And we managed to clear the square, 41.90, and then we came right back and took out the old low. But we're still within range, right? Above 4,000, we're okay. And you can see there's a bunch of little wicks hanging down here at 4,000. And then we managed to go up and test 41.90 last week. And my comments last week was, look, this is all great, but we need to settle about 41.90 to get the train going. So we haven't quite done that. But what did happen last week was, so that looks like a false break. Why? Because we ran hard right up into the square, so that works. Now we have a higher low in place.
High or low, yeah.
Yep. And we have an inside day. So if we break to the upside, great. I think we have everything's in place. We can get rolling, but we need to get about 41.90, like I said, to make sure everything's right. Everything's sitting well.
Hmm.
Everybody's got seatbelts on. So, all right, moving on to
Silver.
silver daily. We're still in the bracket. Wasn't it? We weren't able to get out. We checked out 62 and a half, came back down to 58. We're still in this bracket. Until we can get above 60 to 50, not a whole lot's going to happen. Or we break 58 and get down to 53.60 level, and we finish up our business and then roll. So I feel like silver's sort of in a holding pattern. We need to see something to momentum picks up. For now, copper, I'm telling you, this higher lows and the whole thing is still holding together.
Hmm.
And 635 is really like the key level to watch, and we're just below that. If we can clear that and get on top this time, then I don't think $7 copper is too far away. Of course, 682 is the 50% level, which would bring us into new highs. All right, so that's copper. It's looking okay. This looks constructive. Everything looks okay. We do have a little bit of a ascending triangle here. So the key thing I'm watching for is we can break above 635 and get above that next week. Already the signs are not bad, being that Friday we were able to hold above 620. So it
Mhm.
looks good. Otherwise, we'll probably correct around 620 and hang in there. Obviously, nobody's want to let this go. And we're holding, if you look back, we're holding the highs fairly tight, I would say. Right, Ben?
Absolutely.
Moving on to the weeklies. Let's take a look at gold. Week before, 39.68 level, 50% held. 41.74 is the upper boundary of that bracket on the weekly charts. And we're still within that. On a weekly basis, we poked a little bit above, but we want to break above 71, 41.74 and settle above that to get rolling. But the correction wise, this looks pretty good. I think the 39.68 looks okay. The low could be in, but we have to, like I said, that 41.90 on the daily, we have to watch it a little bit till we get settled into place, but it looks okay. I think the downside might be done here. And looking at,
I'm with you on that.
yeah, we just need a little bit more proof, right, from the market,
Yep.
and we're okay.
Yep. The metals are slowly, giving us evidence that there could be a nice tradable bottom in place here.
Right, right. So silver, we have $57 would be the support level. And we've held that for 3 weeks in a row, so that's kind of hopeful. We have 66 is the 50% level. That's the level we have to really watch to see if we can get above that. And yeah, we're working that bracket in 61.25, 61 and a quarter, which is 3/8 is sort of a pivot, right? So 61.25 is kind of a pivot. So far we're below that. And we're above 57, but below 61 and a quarter. So if we can get above that pivot and settle above, I think that's another sign. So all these are signs of metals moving, right? It's starting to move again. So watch them all. All right, moving on to copper weekly. So so why is it bullish, Barry? Well, it's because we held, right? 607 was the weekly square, and we were able to hold it. We held it for, well, 3 weeks roughly. And that's pretty good, for copper. We have structural support here. So if that $6 range held, 650 is the next level up. So I think we can trade that. Yeah, if we can clear 650, then we have 690, which is practically $7. So and you can see this vertical movement really hasn't, we haven't caught fire yet. It's moving, but it's not fire yet. So I think copper's got something left. And is copper and gold coupled up sometimes, or what's the deal?
Yeah, I mean they all seem to be moving together, and I'll briefly go through them, even though you covered them, just to show you a couple things that I see in each one that are, key levels and
Hmm.
bullish signs coming out of them.
Right. And copper, moving higher is not exactly pointing towards lower inflation, right?
No.
Not really. Doesn't take a genius for that. Okay. All right. So moving on to the dollar. Look, the 100.5
Pinned.
held, right?
Right. Right.
Held and we're looking, we're kind of eyeballing this 101. We're kind of flirting around with that. I think if we get above the 101, we're ready to roll. Why? Well, look, we broke out. Why? What's the deal here? Well, we broke out of what? Well, broke out of these highs that we had in March, broke out of the highs we had in November. So there's a whole lot of breaking out to do, and we did that. And on the check back on the counter trend, we held above that. So this is
Mhm.
very bullish. I don't know how else to read that. It's not going to be bullish. It's to get below 150 and 100.5 and get stuck below. So I think dollar's looking good. We just need to settle above 101, which would kind of put us in the right direction, right? So there's your line, and I'll do all the currencies and dailies, and then I go to weeklies. And here's Here's the euro. I was going to say, here's the EU. Here's the euro. Here's the euro looking weak. Look, we couldn't even get up to the 150 level. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking this is fairly weak. 1350 is the level we got to watch. If we take that out and get under, I think we got a good downtrend is going to continue. And technically, we've had a downtrend since January. We got lower lows and lower highs. So I don't see the trend finishing here, even though we came down to support and we bounced a little. So, we need to take this 1350 out. Obviously, that'll open up the next square, next 50% at least.
Mhm.
So watch for that. And 150 on the upside, right? 1500 to the upside, 1350 to the downside. That's a bracket. We take out 1350, then we're going much lower to the upside. Obviously, we get to take out 1500, which I'm not really expecting, but it's good to have on the board. All right, last one on this run, we have Bitcoin.
It's trying.
It's trying, but it's starting to feel like a little trappish. This trapdoor
Mhm.
somehow is a theme this week for some reason.
The edge
Um,
and the trapdoor. Yep.
and well, look, the good thing is we held well above 60,000, right? That was
Hmm.
sort of the marker that we set out a couple of weeks ago, and we managed to hang in there. Okay, great, fine. But it couldn't make a lot of headway, So we had this 68,580, the line from, a while back, first part of the year, and that's still in there. So, I think as long as we're below 65,580, I'm not all that excited because momentum's really not in there. As you can tell, there's no real momentum here. We're kind of consolidating up and down, looking a little bit like the S&P here. So
Hmm.
that's what's happening. For next week, I would watch it to fail up on around 68,000 levels, the 68,500 level. If it fails, then watch out below because, if we can't hold above 60,000, then I think we're going to go for that flush. Because we had plenty of time to run, right? If we're going to run, we're not doing that. So we're kind of messing around. So that's the upside. We want to, sort of hold 60 and run up to 68,500, 68,500 and see if we can take that. If we can take it, well, there's plenty of upside, but let's say if we can at least manage that. Other than that, the best it can do on the bullish side is to hold 60,000. Of course, if we slip through that, we have 54, 56 to look forward to. Yeah, that's it for Bitcoin. Let's take a quick look at the weekly. Here's the weekly dollar and an inside bar. So watch out next week. If we take out the lows this week, of course, then the 100 level, 0.5 level goes, and then probably have a little bit more correcting to do. But in the meantime, we have a full-blown ABCD in place, set up in place, so we could easily go up and tap this 102, 103 level if we get rolling. So watch for the weekly basis, watch the high and low for next week. We're off the mark. We tested this pretty well. So our currency calls have been, I think they've been pretty good, after, lows came
Excellent.
in, moves came in,
Hmm.
everything. We need to limerick about that one of these days. Ben. All right. Looking at the weekly euro, look, that little coiling action is not exactly bullish. So that might give,
No, because it's below the low right there. Yep.
right? So that might give us a little bit of a clue towards what's happening. So if this
Hmm.
little triangle breaks to the downside, well, great. Um,
I mean, ultimately, Barry, when I look at that chart, we're going to revisit those lows from 22.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, down here.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
it looks like
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
we just corrected that up. Remember when we saw that correction with the false break? We were like, "Oh, forget it. That's toast. The euro's toast."
Yeah, Eurostos, exactly. Exactly. So, and now we're just,
But it's kind of a slow motion train wreck for now.
I mean, with so many, yeah, let's not get into the controls, but
Right.
yeah. So anyway, look, guys, if the triangle breaks to the downside, I think we have the 109.50 area is the first tap. We'll see how that works out. For now, look, we're making lower lows and lower highs, and that's the downtrend. And what can I say?
Hmm.
Take your signals to the downside when they set up.
Yep.
That's all I can say about that. Yeah, that's it for me. Let me
Excellent.
put it back to you. Thanks. Thank you. And we'll do all the commodities. Man, the grain's a bit on fire. Grains moved, soft move.
Softs. Yeah.
So you're
It's fun
making some,
times in commodity land.
it's all looking pretty good.
And
Yeah.
and you got to make hay when it's fun because it's not always fun. A lot of times it's boring. Just look at wheat back here, right?
Wheat was quiet all week, and all of a sudden, I guess
Boom.
it opened the email or something, it got busy.
Well, and remember last week when we brought the grains back into the feature one of the featured groups, we was like, look, we made a higher low, right? The
Yeah.
correction came in, we made a
Mhm.
higher low, we held structural support, we broke out of this little mini downtrend. Remember, we ended the week right here
Mhm.
last week, and then we, futzed around for 3 days, and then boom. And of course, we closed on the edge. I know you guys see the theme by now, but I'm going to keep hammering it. Again, if we
We
can
can't
close.
ignore when it closes right on it, right?
Right. And it's done it in so many markets this week. So next week we want to print bars, full square, bars, full bars above this half square of 641 because that captures that. And then we open up this whole additional half square. But once you see the higher lows come in and you get a reversal, this is why we try to get involved and try to get a toe in the water because your risk reward is good, right? We could be wrong, right? And if these lows got taken out, we would say, "Hey, we're wrong, got to get out." But now we're in, and now we're seeing if we can catch fire and catch a big move here.
We could be what? Did you say?
We could be wrong. It happens. And
But
and
this time it looks like the move. I mean, look, we scraped around for a whole year. Now we're
Mhm.
starting to pick up, and it seems like the cycles are getting some traction.
There's no question money's coming in here. And when money comes in and you see this kind of activity, you got to take advantage of it because most of the time the commodities are doing this, right?
Yep.
This boring sideways and basing and you just have to be patient, but when they go you got to be ready and you got to take action.
Right.
So let's take a look at the weekly. We're going to run through these quickly, but you can see nice big reversal week. We had two inside bars, but we took out the high of last week's inside bar and we really got a nice move out of here. The big area, as you can see, where we failed a couple times, 681. Not saying that's going to happen this week, but keep 681 on your radar and 644. Those are, the 7/8 and the full square. But everything looks good here, right? Higher lows, higher highs, and getting these upward thrusts out of the lows is really a bullish sign because that means that, the money just once the correction's done, the money comes flying in. Here's your monthly. And the monthly, the 595 was your key number. We barely printed a little bit below that, but that was at the open of the month. We're already closing up here. We're already up here at 640. Let's watch it and see if we can continue to progress here on the monthlies as well. And if we go 45s, and this thing loves to do 45s, either low to high, high to low, this takes us out into, and that's 45 months, right? This takes us into 2029 for potential highs here. This is just getting started if that time count works. Anything you want to add here on wheat?
No, we're good. We're fine.
Okay. Look at corn. Nice big move on Friday.
Hmm.
But again, it was, we talked about here we couldn't make a lower low and then we pushed up, pulled back, and now we're going again. So, but the key to watch this coming week is 446. If we can, get a daily bar above that, sort of clears a lot of this stuff. And you can see that it's had issues and battles here many, many times. So 446 on a daily basis is important, but we got a nice strong outside reversal bar on the daily on Friday. So should see additional follow through this week. Let's see how we do at 446. That's going to tell us a lot. Let's look at the weekly. Nice up bar on the weekly. We did 3 or 4 weeks, just basically, standing still, moving in place, right? And then we have a nice big move out of there. The key here was the 412 held full square. Now we've got a reversal. Let's see if we can tack on it and make a higher high on a weekly basis. But we tested this for a month and then went. Let's look at the monthly. On your monthly, we're still inside last month's bar. Let's see if we can make a higher high this week. That would give us a higher high for the month. And the 463 is the key here. And if you don't know why, you can look at the recent battles and then go back in time and look left and look at what happens once we get above that area. Remember this one, Barry? This was the one where we based for like 6-7 years, and
Yeah.
then had that big breakout into the Ukraine-Russia war.
Yep. I
So
remember
good
that.
things happen monthly basis above 463. Again, I don't know that we're going to have that big of a push this week, but watch 463 monthly, see if we can, get above and stay above that. Any other comments you want to add on corn?
Well, I was gonna say, when they get going, they go, and I remember even in the that last run up, I remember you calling it out perfectly, and we followed it, and I remember my whole thing was like getting out too early. So you gotta
Right,
you
right.
gotta remember one thing, catching it at one thing, then you gotta kind of manage the whole thing to let it run to its end, hopefully, or as much as you can, right?
And that we could do a week's worth of shows on trade management because that's something you and I discuss all the time. Like, how can I get more out of it? What did I do wrong? What could I do better? I mean, it's a
Or
constant process, man. You never arrive
yep,
on
yep.
that one. But yeah, that's a great point. Once these things start moving, you want to stay in as long as you can because the ride is pretty glorious. Let's go to the next one. It's beans. Had a nice week on beans, and we talked about 1125 being the key here, right? And you can see what happens once you start clearing 1125, you get that movement. Now the full square at 1216 is going to be key, right? If we can get on top and sit on top of that, then we got beans in the teens and we got, much higher prices to go. And we tried twice already and we just couldn't make it. So let's see if the third time's the charm here. So 1216 is the full square on a daily basis that we want to watch in the coming week. We want to see some full bars printed above that, settling above it. Here's your weekly. So again, 3-4 weeks worth of consolidation and a big bar out of here. This 171 is the key level for weekly basis this week. Let's see if we can keep the low above that and we print a full bar above it. If we do that, then we attack 1227 and then 1283. But the correction, the thrusts and the corrections are doing what, a bull market does, giving us higher lows and higher highs. And we want to continue to see that. Let's look at the monthly. Monthly basis, 1202, pretty important. This 3/8 of a square here.
Hmm.
And we closed at 1192 roughly. So we're right in that neighborhood. And then after that, the half square at 1275. But you can see, we already have a higher high this month, so we're setting up for, a monthly bullish reversal here after what was it? One month correction. The grains are all setting up, all going. It's just finding a good spot risk reward wise to get involved on the bullish side for now. Anything you want to add on beans?
No, we're good to go. We're good to go on the grains.
Okay, let's go check out the softs, which have been very fruitful this past month. First one we'll start with is sugar. Sugar's lagging a little behind the other ones, but I think it's building sort of like the pressure that it needs to really get going. The key level we talked about last week was this 1512, and you can see we battled at it all week, right? Up, up, down, straddling it, crisscrossing it. It means it's not ready to go yet, but it's building pressure, right? As long as we stay above this 1432, let's call it, we're in pretty good shape there. Well, that'll, if we do break through this structural support, which is just below the lows of Friday, 1432, I'd want to see it hold. If we lose that, then we got to go say, hey, maybe we're still stuck in this sideways, right? And we would wait for a breakout and then to sit on top. But it's building pressure on a daily basis. Let's look at the weekly. Weekly, you can kind of see once we broke through the downtrend line, we stopped this downward movement, and now we've been sort of going sideways and just now starting to curl. Like this last low, 3 or 4 weeks ago was on top of the full square as opposed to, pushing through it a bunch. And now we've had, 3, 4 weeks in a row of higher highs. Here, weekly basis, the key is going to be 16. We want to clear 16. Once we clear 16, we open up 18. Let's look at the monthly. Why I think it's lagging, but is due to catch up. This month we broke out of the downtrend, right? And this was from late 2023. So, 2.5 year type downtrend. That's a pretty decent downtrend on a monthly basis that we broke through that with this bar 1599, which is also ties in with the 16 on the weekly. But we'll see some action here. Usually once you break out of these downtrends, and we saw it in different commodities, good things happen on the bullish side. As long as you have the structure and the higher highs and higher lows and things to support it, or the squares, this is just another piece of evidence that we're in for potentially a long-term sort of trend change here. Anything you want to add in sugar? I know we were talking about it earlier in the week.
No, I think you framed everything perfectly. We're good.
Okay.
There are
Let's
things
go
to
that.
watch and things to be active on, right?
Right. All right. Let's see. Let me find this one. Nope, that's not it. The next one. We haven't talked about this in a little while, and boy, did it wake up this week.
Sure did, right off the 50%.
Yep, this is cotton. It's back in the mix. We caught this move up in cotton. Right? We highlighted it. And this was the most boring chart. It was funny when I would do my weekly chart review, I'd always say, well, I don't have to spend a lot of time on cotton because it's just sideways. And that was for 2 years. And then we started getting things like, oh, a little false break here at the low. We went up, pulled back, and reversed a higher low, a higher high, and then it led to this sharp pullback, right? Pulled back sharply, found structural support here at 71. We got this reversal and the higher low, and here we go again. Now that we've captured this half square, the possibilities are threefold. One, we're ready to make another push higher, big move, new all-time highs, right? That means it's going higher. The second one is we go up and we make a false break high, still going higher. And the last one is we go up when we make a lower high. So 2 out of the 3 are very favorable for the bullish outcome and profits. And the structure is just really, really good with this market, right? We made this high off the low, higher low, higher high, and look where the pullback is, right on structural support and 50% of the square. Close the week on a high, generally positive for the following week for commodities. So things look good again for cotton to get involved. Let's check the weekly. There's your weekly. Higher high, the key number here, and you'll see why by looking left, 84.53 on the full square. On the initial run up, we poked above it, couldn't stay above it, and had a correction. This time, we'll know, and probably this week, if it keeps moving like it is, can we push through this time? Because sitting on top of that is meaningful. You can see what happened on the way down, right? Huge battles happened here. And then once we got below it and stuck under it, we went down into this, 2-year sideways. 84.53, very, very important level. Watch that. Lastly, let's take a look at the monthly. Here's another level to watch. Call it 89. That's your full square. Barry, look what happens every time we're at this level.
Yep.
It is very, very important. And if we do happen to settle above it, you get these kind of moves. It tried it on the first run, didn't have enough energy, made a pullback, a higher low, good structure. Now we're on the second run. Let's see if we can make it through these key levels. Call it 89 on the monthly and 84 and a half on the weekly. Anything else you want to add on cotton?
Well, if you look at the daily that you were just looking, I noticed there's a good Gartley setting up. So there is a ABCD potential here.
Hmm.
XABC right there,
Yeah.
that could be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
At
Let me
least to
put the
take some profits coming off the 50% level,
hmm
you know.
I'll put the ABCD in so you can see it.
Well,
Look at that.
that would be something.
Yep. Be a nice move.
Yeah. And right on
And
the
that
on the
would
month.
potentially be the lower high scenario that I described.
Mhm.
But we know the key levels, right? Weekly, monthly key levels. And if cotton can handle those in a bullish manner, there's a lot of money to be made on cotton in the next couple months. Anyway, you got the levels, watch it and let's see how it plays out. All right, let's go to the next one. Next one's coffee. Coffee's interesting from a standpoint of we tracked this bullish currents here where we had a little false break right on a full square. We picked up a nice part of this move, and now it looks like we're triangulating. So is that bearish? I don't think so. What I think it's doing, and I always refer back to this because it's a recent example that people can remember from our shows, Barry. Remember when gold would do these triangulations after a nice spike up,
Yep. Yep.
and it was a lot of chop, but it really wasn't correcting in price by a whole lot.
Hmm.
This appears to be doing something very similar, around a key level, which is this full square. So let's watch. I mean, structurally, right? It's basically sitting on top of this high right here. So if
Right.
we chop around here, that's bullish, right? And then we'll get another move in coffee. For now, there's not a lot to do in coffee. Let this, it's going wild, like 10 and 12 points a day, up and down,
Yeah. Yeah.
15 points a day. Let it do all that. Let's see how this plays out. But we may get another bullish shot here at coffee, if this correction plays out. And this is like some sort of four, and we get one more move in a five. Let's give you some perspective. Let's look at the weekly and then the monthly. It's a pretty good square, huh? Look at where the high came in this past week.
Perfect.
Yep. So again, if we pull back even into this 300 range, it would be bullish, right? 320 area. All this would be bullish if we pulled back into here and then went again. Let's watch how this triangle slash correction slash fourth wave plays out, but there may be another shot here. And you can see how the squares are picking out really good areas, important price levels to battle in. So let's see. The bigger picture is it looks bullish if we can, if we can hold decent levels in this area, and let's see if this triangle plays out and gives us another shot to the upside. Anything you see differently here on coffee?
No, we're good. I think it's the time to trade coffee. It's
Mm.
active, it's moving, it's out of the gate.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, looks good.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Watch Ben's updates on X. That's the thing. If you guys aren't following us there, check the links are in description. That's you keep everybody up to date, right? On the
Absolutely. On these commodities intraday, intra-week, I'll definitely put them out there. So the next one we want to look at, Barry, is cocoa.
hmm
Now we had a hell of a move on this one, right? Just
Yep.
crazy, crazy good move. And we've tracked this thing since the low. We kind of got involved in here when we got our higher low and higher high again.
Yep. Yep.
And the run has been glorious. The issue here is I have a 108 by 90 daily square here to here.
Right.
So we've had a 90-day run and into old highs and structural resistance here.
And this is
So
how we end up not catching the whole move.
right, right.
Exactly.
So all I'm saying is if you're long, be careful. It is if we pull back here and off that high and hold 5,700, I'll get involved again on the long side. if we start pulling back and getting stuck below here, we got to say, okay, where are we going to pull back to? Where's a good spot to get involved again? It looks like we did something here. We put in a high. I don't know if it is the high, but it looks like a high. And based on that, I'm short-term cautious on cocoa, but looking for a spot to see if we get a setup for the next move higher. That's the daily. Let's get a little weekly perspective here. Here's your weekly. So we broke out of this, this big downtrend triangle, whatever you want to call it. We broke up, had a huge move up, like from down in here when we were getting involved, you had, like 2,000 points, almost 3,000 point move. So it's been fantastic. Little caution short term. I want to see how do we play out on this pullback, because we could come all the way back to here and it's still bullish, right? All we would be doing would be checking this breakout coming back here, testing these highs here. So I'm not thinking it's going to new lows or anything like that. Obviously, we'd have to see evidence to show that. But for now, I want to see what kind of pullback we get and if we get another setup to look long here. Let's look at the monthly. The monthly, you can see we're flirting with a key full square level here at 5,900. Where do we close the month? Can we close above that? Print a bar up here, that would be bullish. If we get stuck under here, that would mean we have some more correcting to do. But look, we went up like, what is it? Like a full square and a half, basically.
Yeah.
From the low. So if we pull back 3/4 of a square, that's not unusual. If we pull back to here, 4,700, 4,600. A little caution on cocoa, but knowing overall this is promising for a bigger bullish move. Anything you want to add on cocoa? Because I know it's, for me not to be bullish on this thing after this move is a little strange, but when did we square it out and having a little reaction?
I think just let the counter trend work out. See where we end up. If we can end up above that 7/8, which is a little bit above that little triangle that we had in
right. Yeah, right there.
there. If we can hold above that, I think reverse above that, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
We shouldn't do more than that if we're going to go vertical,
Because if we do, then something else is going on.
Then that leg was that.
But when you catch these, man, is that nice?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. As I was saying, we're having a lot of fun with commodities recently. All right, that's it for the softs. You can see a lot of activity there, a lot of bullish activity. So money is definitely coming into the space. Let's quickly look at the metals. I know you covered them. I want to highlight a couple things on these. Here's the daily on gold. And again, like we saw in other markets, it's starting to poke through this downtrend line that's been in place since the beginning of June. And that to me is also another sign that if we can get above this 41.72, which is in similar place to your number, I think yours was 41.90 in that area. If we get above that, we got some run in gold. And it just has the look and feel of of a turn that's going through here. And anyways, as always, we look at our risk, right? If we're wrong, that means this full square is going to get taken out. And we know it's time to cut and run. So on the weekly, 42.40 is the key number. Next week, if we can get above 42.40, it opens up a path to 4,500. Again, on the downside, 39.50, the half square here, that says that the correction's not done and there's more to go if we lose that. And your monthly, not a lot to see there because this is the first, month of the bottom. We're just basically having an inside bar. But I think the overall tenor looks bullish, cautiously bullish, but we just got to see the thing that would cement this is if we could take out this high and settle above that 41.72. That's around 4,200. So I know you covered gold, so you're in agreement there that it's tentatively bullish, but it's got some work to do.
Yeah.
Silver, I just want to show on multiple time frames what the key is here. On your daily, 61.44. You can see why. right? We need to get above that, sit on top of 61.44, and then we can go. Weekly, 62.95. So call it 63. So we got 61 and a half to 63. And on the monthly, 60 and a half. So low 60s are really, really important in silver. Say 61 to 63. That area is key. If we can clear it and get through that level, then we can say with a lot more confidence that silver looks like it's ready to roll back to the upside. And I think those are similar again to the numbers you had on yours, Barry. If I'm not mistaken, you were in that 62, 63 area, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's good for silver. Lastly, let's look at copper. And I just visually want you to look at this. Look at where this correction is taking place, right? When you look over to the side, it's basically on top of almost all the price action from, January to May. And again, it reminds me of how gold was correcting. And yet we've been correcting, we've been going sideways since May, right? So almost 2.5 months now. This
Hmm.
is how you burn off time in a correction. Key here, we're above this 605 full square. As long as we're above that and 622 in the quarter square, there's going to be a push higher. Here's the weekly. Again, the 618, 620, I think was your number, Barry. We're
Yeah.
crisscrossing it and it's battling, but it's battling but not giving up much ground. And when a market does that, it's a sign of strength, underlying strength. Here on the monthly, it's 627. So six to 620, key number on copper. As long as we're above that or battling in that area, the weight of evidence is going to push us higher once it's ready to go. And that's it for the commodities. The bottom line is money's coming into the grains, money's coming into the softs, money's coming back into the metals after, correcting, since the beginning of the year when they made their highs. So the next thing would be energy. You talked about crude, the key levels there. Nat gas sold off this week, so I didn't put it up. I want to see what kind of structure we can start to build there and see if it warrants from a risk reward standpoint getting involved there. All in all, though, the commodities are bullish and money's coming in. So, as we said at the beginning of the show, we're on the edge, and the edge is either the edge of glory or the edge is the trap door. We're going to know this week in a lot of markets because they are right there. They're on that spot. So, it's a weekend to rest up and a week coming up to pay attention because things are going to be moving. And we hope we have you ready for it by knowing the right levels. Good job on everything, Barry. I think you did a great job identifying the levels for everyone, and let's see how the week plays out.
Thanks, Ben. Definitely good job covering all the commodities and the softs because we're in there early. So
Yep.
hopefully they'll continue and we'll see how it all goes. All right, you guys have a great weekend. We'll catch you next week. And if you don't follow us on X, try to follow us on X. We're there. We're on Substack. And also please like and comment. Have a great
And
week
subscribe.
and subscribe, of course. Yep. All right.
Have a great week, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.